Okay. Um, so we have a bunch of announcements, things that have happened. Terrence is here to go over a project in the J. Smith Park. And if you don't know where that is, we'll talk about where it is. And we'd like to make sure that we spend some time on the draft Hanover Garage RFP so we can keep moving that along. So let's start with the minutes of, I think we can take them both together, January 28th and February 25th.
So moved.
A motion from Lenny,
Second.
I'm gonna abstain just because I wasn't at that.
abstaining
meeting.
Heather. Any corrections or changes? All in favor?
Aye. There was one correction. I was just at the last meeting, but I was on Zoom and I don't know if that got corrected.
It did.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear who seconded to record that. And second, I really can't tell who is in the room and who isn't. So if somebody could tell me who's there and who, or maybe who's not there, and then just let me know who seconded, then I can get that recorded.
We're all here.
Okay, great.
Robin and Lenny are on Zoom, and Ernie are on Zoom, but otherwise we're all here.
Okay, and who seconded the motion?
I did, Jen.
Thank you.
So as we came in, we were talking, Lenny and Robin and I were at the rededication this morning of the Button Project, and it was really, and Kate as well, it was really wonderful, and it reminds me how important it is to do that thing. Sarah Haskell spoke just incredibly. People were spellbound. She told the story of doing the whole project. The deputy manager came, the fire chief, someone from police. So it was really a moving, people were crying. We were talking about, it was really a wonderful piece. And the rec folks are incredible partners for all of this work. And then the mural that we approved a little bit ago is up in the lobby, and it also looks terrific. So I don't know, Lenny or Kate, do you want to, or Robin, say anything?
Yeah, Kate and I were talking, and I said, as I walked out the door with I looked through the big notebook, which had all these letters of all the people that had donated buttons or helped. So, I mean, it was a big notebook, and flipped through, and there were so many personal stories that each one you like choked up. Like, this is for either someone that died in their family, or this is for my 8 grandchildren, and how all the women came together, some teenagers, to sew the buttons, and people were exchanging stories, and I was flipping through the book, and another woman next to me, we were each saying, "Where were you when you heard the news?" And we started crying. And then I walked out with the fire chief, and we were talking in the parking lot, very animated. I thanked for his service and said I had 2 brothers in the force and in Connecticut. And as we talked, we got choked up, and I thought, wow, 25 years ago, I was shocked how emotional I felt there. It
Yeah.
was quite moving.
I think one of the things that was really striking to me from our perspective, it's how important it is to place a piece of art in the right location.
Yes.
It was just the artwork itself felt like it had more meaning in the new space, because you could see it, you felt like you're interacting with it. It was more, the message of the artwork was more visible. I just thought it was just so meaningful that we took the time as a committee to move it again. I think that's really important for us, and quite a lesson to be learned, that we should think about the pieces of art, kind of like the salt piles is just so striking at the end of this hallway.
Yeah.
And it's that thinking about place, creating place.
Just to add one more little piece, one thing that struck me really powerfully was I didn't know the history of that piece, and to hear how it was a community piece, how she reached out to people all over the country to send her buttons, and how community members came and helped her sew it
Yeah.
and the whole aspect of it. And she kept saying, I was just a receptacle. I was a vessel. And the ideas came through me and I gave birth to it. But it was ideas from all over the country. As I read these letters, it helped inform the artwork. I thought, wow, that was so powerful.
And I think a project we probably should do, as we need one more project, is to record the artists who've done our public artwork, including people like Terrence, and talking about the work itself, because we can link that to the QR codes that are on that. Because to hear her talk about what you just said, Lenny, how it came together, as much as I've been involved with that piece, I didn't know all of what she said today, and it was really, really great. So,
Should we put on our list also sort of more on a rotational art program? I know that one needed to be moved, but maybe there are some other ones that we could shift to a new audience. I mean, just hearing what you're saying, I mean, that. that would
I think
benefit.
you're right. And the library owns a lot of some wonderful pieces that could also be, we don't have jurisdiction over their work, but we could suggest some things. I think that's right, to make sure that people get to see them. What I didn't realize is that like theater classes for high school students are being held at community campus. And so Margarita, who was there from Players Ring, was so excited that her teenage theater kids are going to be able to see this. And I think the community campus is getting a lot more use now that I wasn't aware of, which is terrific. Yeah. Okay, more things to do.
Oh, good.
The meeting with the Sister City, March 30th, 3:30 PM. I think we should keep the time. Stephanie, if you're listening, because several of us can make that time. So who else is able to come to that? Jen, Kate, we know Terrence is coming. Okay, good. So there will be a translator. So we will be able to talk to the artist. And I don't know if anyone from DPW is able to make that, but we can see. And Stephanie, do you know if that is going to be here in conference room A? It is? Okay.
May I suggest that we invite Marguerite from the Arts and Cultural Commission to participate?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to have someone from the Arts and Cultural Commission here because of that discussion, but also she's Italian.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can do that. I have her email.
Thank you.
She was incredibly touched by today. It was very important. That's about all we know about that meeting. If you go on, UNH has got the full schedule of all the films, and they're happening at different places. Some are happening here in Portsmouth, some are happening at different places on campus. But they're all free, they're all open to the public.
Do you know about this?
Vaguely, if there's an Italian film festival at UNH, right?
Yeah.
And, okay.
Yes, and there's an artist coming and they happen to be from our sister city, so they've connected with our sister city committee and it's gonna be a gift of art and that's how it got here. It's a lot of connection.
Yeah,
Thank you. Do we know that piece yet?
that's why
That's the meeting
we're
next
pinning
Monday.
down.
Thank you.
Chris, Robin said she could come. It just was popped up when you were speaking.
Okay, good.
Else.
The next thing is the trust RFP. It's out there. Ernie, do you want to talk about the question that we got and anything else that you know about that?
Sure. We've sent it out widely, and we just had one question from the Gundalo company, and they asked some interesting questions about whether the Piscataqua, the Gundalo, is public art, and whether some of the work they do with their high school students across the area could be included would be appropriate for this grant because it's expensive. So we consult, a few of us talked about that and I responded to them. And so that was our first question. But, we'll see if we get more as we get closer to the deadline.
Are they eligible?
What was that?
Are they eligible?
Well, I guess it's going to depend on the review committee. And so the way I responded after talking to a few different people is that, you could make the argument that the Piscataqua is public art, that it wouldn't be exactly, I guess, original public art because it's a replica. And I just suggested that maybe they could connect it more with like the Endeavor, the Gundalo, because that's Gundalo sales. So, if they could develop that a little bit, the connection a little bit. And also, I just said, I'm not sure the committee had thought about like an ongoing program as something, but, I said, you're welcome to apply. And so I didn't hear back.
Thank you.
I mean, it is challenging for people to think about what the trust was about, which is programs that connect to public art. So, I mean, basically we were saying, no, we can't just pay for kids to have rides on the gondola. No, that's not enough. There has to be more of a connection there to public art. Not saying that the gondola itself is a craft and that, it's reasonable to think that, a group of people could say, yes, that qualifies as a public art piece, but what are you going to do with it? What is it going to be about? How is it going to connect?
I have forwarded the RFP when it first came out, and we got a copy of it to a whole bunch of art associations and art buildings and said, please pass it on to everybody in your groups.
Right.
So, but I haven't heard back specifically from anyone. Told them not to email me back actually, but to send it forward to the committee if they had a proposal.
But probably closer to the deadline. I mean, you know how these things go. You wait until, certainly I do, I wait until closer to the deadline.
We should probably send a reminder, like at the end of the month, just, that the deadline's coming up. I could work, Stephanie was so helpful with the email, and I can talk to her about that and see if we could send a reminder.
And that's a reminder for me to remind you all that we said that tentatively, our next meeting, we're going to do it a little bit longer, assuming that we will get some applicants. But we'll let you know, in advance of that if we don't get any applicants.
I think a reminder email is a really fantastic idea.
Good. Ernie, do you want to continue with the NEBI?
Sure. So, at our last meeting, I showed, the progress that was being made on the final design for NEBI. And some members of PARC had some concerns about the dress that Nebin was wearing and whether it would be appropriate for, a Native American woman at that time. And just wanted to report back that Anthony Alamani met with Denise and Paul Pulio from the Native American group, and he's making some changes. They thought the dress should be made out of leather, so it's going to be like more fitted on the top, but more flowing on the bottom. And they're also had some other suggestions, like she would wear some kind of, I think, pouch. And he wanted to keep it simple, but he's making changes. I had hoped that I'd have something to show tonight, but we didn't have that yet, but soon we will. So thanks for all the input we got at the last meeting. He took it very seriously, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results.
Not that the dress would be leather, but that the.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, that it would have more the look of leather than it does now, and it would be more flowy.
We've learned that we do have to apply for shoreland protection permits for both the bench and for Nebby, and I think that's something that Sean has under control, sort of.
It's on my desk.
It's reached his desk.
I think it's done then,
Um,
right?
And Peter Rice told us it should be relatively simple here, because it's about disturbance, and these don't disturb the ground very much. I did receive on Sunday the contract, and there are a few edits that we want to make in it, and then we'll send it for this second phase.
The contract
For Anthony.
for.
Because we paid him to do the maquette, and now the next phase is to get to the point of being able to do the model for casting.
And maquette is where?
Ernie, do we know anything about the maquette yet? We keep waiting for it.
Yeah, that's the changes that he's making now, and when those changes are made, we'll be getting closer to that. And it's not really going to be, because now they've decided to cast it directly from this maquette. I don't really know all the specific language, but what he's working on now is going to be the final that's going to be used for the casting.
Okay, thank you.
Mara, Lenny, Heather, anything you want to tell us about the exhibit space work? I know you guys got right to work and.
Well, we went with your suggestion that we not think that we're casting anything in stone, bronze, or, you know, even concrete. And that we looked at it as a pilot, in which case we decided that it would be really good to make this one, to move things along quickly, to make it an invitational. And we came up with a list that we all pretty well agreed on the first, and that we'd send it to 4 people based on the space of the available space in that room, the usable walls. And, you know, that we'd send it to 4 people, we have a 5th and I guess we can go to a 6th. We came up with about 10 names. And that was all pretty easy, and we were ready to start to have something hung by end of April.
We hope.
Yeah, but
usually
we
without-
were told that that was a little too soon. And so then we started aiming for May, the end of May, and I don't know.
Was it the end of May or was it the end of, no,
I
no,
think it was
you were going for April 1st.
You were going for,
April
April
first.
April 1st.
Now we're-
Yeah, okay, now we're at the end of April.
okay,
End of April
March.
receiving and
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we-
yeah, but I'm not, we'll have to, I think we need to talk about the feasibility of that, since we're already well into March and.
Well.
I don't know, well, we'll talk. Maybe there is no.
But the idea is to hang them, to have the exhibit May, June and July, right?
Right, that was our idea. Our
Okay.
dates were
Have-
May 1st through
Right.
July 30th-ish.
Right.
Right,
I
okay.
think that still
I
works.
think we can still do it. I mean, we had a pretty quick turnaround as it was, but we still could get it. I mean, we know the people that we
Yeah.
wanted to, and
Yeah, and
we have most, so we have a letter, and it's been looked at by
Yeah,
legal.
there's a,
You can say more than I can, because I haven't read.
yeah, so legal updated the agreement. So to Chris's point, I think sending a nice letter from Park with the technical agreement from the city would make a nice impression. And then you've got a list of artists, and if anybody doesn't like what they see in the agreement, then they won't sign it. Like, we're not gonna insure,
Right,
yeah,
right, those kind of things,
okay.
so,
Kate, yeah,
Be sure to give them a deadline to reply.
Yeah, we did.
yeah.
yep.
I
Right.
mean, we planned that into the letter.
Okay.
So I'll just ask the committee, I'm happy to go to legal tomorrow and say what you've given Park is acceptable?
I haven't read it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
so let
can't
me
say
know.
that.
Uh,
But I can try and get to you tomorrow.
If so, great. If not, it'll have to wait till Monday.
All right, because tomorrow is Thursday.
I'm not working Friday, so, but I think that's still plenty of time.
Yeah.
To
Right.
have something to send out to people, and
Right.
then,
Our original letter, when we thought we were going to go a month earlier, had us sending it out on one date, and then their response date was a week later. And then that would be like, we were wanting the work maybe 2 weeks after that, so I think kind
so
of.
if we can
like
get it done by the end of,
I mean, it would be wonderful
next
if we
week.
could have it installed by May 1st and up
Yeah,
through
that would
July
be lovely.
30th.
Yeah.
It'd be really lovely.
This says, May 1st exhibit opens, then June 30th
Is
gets
the when it
picked up.
closes, yeah.
That's,
oh, it should be July.
That's too
Should be
tight.
July,
Yeah,
right?
should be July. You want it up longer than that.
Well, I think July 1st to Monday or Sunday or
It's
something. I
gonna
mean, I was looking
want
at
through
a
the end of
calendar.
July.
You want the end of July.
And what at the end of July?
End of July.
So that would,
talking
they
about
would
doing
let it go
3.
by August.
I was pushing for 4, but we were saying, well, maybe we should start with 3, so we were going back and forth exhibits per
I
year.
just think
But
maybe
this is only 2 months.
Is that the letter from
May,
legal? Is
June.
that the letter from legal that you're looking at?
Yeah, it says pick up June 30th, so that's only 2 months.
Okay, I can, this was a draft.
It's a draft.
I can
Yeah.
get
No one got
that
that,
fixed.
right?
Notes on that? Okay, good. Thank you for getting that going. Thank you. And then just a reminder, the master plan open house at community campus on April 22nd. It's a chance just to put in, just to be alert to any art opportunities. We know that people like the idea of more art. When we were at community campus today, I think it was Bryn and somebody else who said, art for outside. I mean, that building has so much potential for so many things. So, God, all we need is money. But that's your chance also to see these pieces if you go to that meeting. Any other announcements before we invite Terrence up to take us through? Come on up, Terrence, you're on. And we did put in the PowerPoint what you sent, so.
Well, I don't know if you know the space that's, I call the J. Smith Garden. It's across from Richardson's Market and Googie's Sandwich Shop on State Street. And apparently J. Smith bequeathed that to the city when he, I don't know if it's before he died or after he died or during, but it's a little, I don't know the history of the space.
Either.
Garden now, and it's been, it's kind of, it's suffered from neglect. So Jay Smith was the owner of the press room. He gave a whole bunch of money to save the music hall. The music hall was looking for money. And he was a really wealthy guy and he was philanthropic, and he gave this piece of land to the city, which was maintained by the abutter who had irrigation that served the plants, and Kate Crowell, who was also an artist who died several years ago. And there's a little plaque to her there in the front on the sidewalk, and there's a plaque to Jay Smith on the back of the stone back, way back there is Jay Smith stone. And that's, that head, that big concrete head is by Steve Lee, a local artist. And that's going to be moved, or it may have been moved already, but so.
Do we know if Jay had any say in what was there, or did he just give the land?
I think he has no say in anything that, he gave the land to the city, and the city hasn't maintained it at all in the course of, I mean, Jay's been dead for maybe 20 years. I only knew him very tangentially. He's friends of friends.
Why and where are they moving Kate Crowell's sculpture?
We're not moving Kate. We're gonna move, well, it's a J. Smith property, so Kate Crowell was maintaining it. So her plaque is gonna be just moved. It's gonna be left on site, but moved to the back.
Oh,
So
okay.
Jay's the namesake.
So Kate didn't actually, that was a confusion I had. She didn't actually develop anything, but there was just a recognition.
No, she just maintained the plants there. She was
I
a
see.
gardener.
Okay.
Okay.
She was in the button factory. when she-
What's the bus that's there now?
That's
I can-
That's a ceramic, that's a concrete head that was built by Steve Lee, a local artist. It has nothing to do with Jay Smith, except Steve Lee was a friend of Jay Smith's. And Carl Achel, who is also a friend of Jay Smith, wants to donate his time to make a bust of Jay Smith to replace that concrete head in the same location. And so I was approached by Kathy Ferguson, who is also a friend of Jay Smith. And so there's money tied up in a trust that the city maintains for the park. And the city will maintain it in the future, although there'll be no water there because the water came from one of the abutter properties that's been sold several times since the development of this space as a park.
I think Nancy wanted to say something. Nancy?
Yeah, I sure, thank you. I just wanted to say that Kate was she took on the care of the gardens and the park, and she approached me back when Art Speak was still an entity, and when I was on the council, because her observations were that the park was dark. People were using it as to bring their pets and not pick up after them. She was very distraught and distressed by it. And so she and I worked with the city to have more visibility from the police department on this park so that it wasn't used as like, well, a dog and a people bathroom, as it turns out. So without her advocating for that, I can only imagine the space. But that's just a little background on how that part of town is sometimes doesn't get a lot of love. And so just to keep that in mind about the park.
Yeah, so consequently, we're gonna remove the big lilacs that are around the sidewalk that block the view into the park. So those everything in the front of the sidewalk is gonna be low plantings. We're gonna repair the pavement. So we have bids from several contractors, and there is a good bid that we're gonna use eventually, I hope.
There's the diagram if you want to point anything out.
That's the demo plan. So
Sorry.
this is where the head is, the concrete head, and that's where the bus is gonna be. This is this zone here and here, or where the brick pavement is kind of shot, needs to be replaced because the tree roots have pressed it up and it didn't maybe have good base. So those areas are part of the bid. So they'll be repaired. This is a handicap access. This has a curb access. There'll be no water. There'll be no lights because that has to come from an abutter property. It's not the facility on that site in the street to actually engage with those facilities. So I've redone the planting, and Carl Achel, who's the brother of Genevieve Achel, who's the New Hampshire Theater Project woman. So he's also an artist. These I think you have those in the file.
Yes.
So
There's
there's several busts that he's done. He's done a lot of busts. He does drawings every week at Steve Lee's studio. So that's the plan, is that he's donating time to build a bust of Jay Smith that'll be put in the same place as the head that's there now on that granite plinth. And maybe there's another stone, depending on the size of the bust that Carl creates. I think it's going to be a little larger than life size. So Carl is making a clay bust. It's going to be cast, and the casting cost is going to be in the bid that will go to the trust, the cost of everything, not just the plants, but
So it'll be bronze?
It'll be bronze, yep, and there'll be a plaque there for Jay Smith. Kate Crowell plaque will move to the background a little bit, so she'll still have a present there, but she won't be front and center as she is now, because it's Jay Smith's property. So there'll be a bust of Jay Smith there in the end, and the planting will all be done, and it'll be much more visible from the street and the sidewalk. So it'll be still this green space for the public to enjoy, but there'll be a real piece of Jay Smith there.
I'm just a little confused. The bust that's there now is not Jay Smith.
No,
and
no,
it's not
no.
Katie Crowell
No.
either.
No, it's just, it's a placeholder. It's been there for a
Yeah.
decade plus, but Steve Lee makes a lot of like, he's an artist and a mason, and he just makes a lot of quirky concrete stuff, and he just put it there because he knew everybody. And it's been there because nobody said anything, and so I told him it was gonna be moved. Cause there's gonna be a real Jay Smith bust there. So it'll be Jay Smith Garden. That's what I call it, but I think it's called something else, Lower State Street. I think the city calls it the Lower State Street.
State Street Park, I think.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
Looks like Jen, you have a question.
I do have a question, but I think, and I'm not sure who can answer this one, but I thought that I had read that the Adopt a Spot was gonna like be revitalized, the garden. Is that gonna, because this would be the perfect spot to start adopting the
Well,
spot.
that could happen, but the city has told me that they're gonna maintain it with the people that maintain the Prescott Park. They're just gonna do their facilities
So
and
it'll be-
maintain the space.
It'll be
Yeah.
adopted by somebody, by the city.
Yes, that's adopted.
Somebody could consider, because the Friends of the South End do this, you know, the planter boxes on
On the bridges.
Gerald White House Bridge.
Yeah.
They they plant all of those and water all of those, and they carry the water.
Can I
So
just tell you, just to interrupt, it's just one person that does it.
Exactly. There's
It's
one,
yeah.
but Sanders donates the water. So they fill, you know, basically watering cans and put them in a wheelbarrow, you know, bring them over. So you could do an adopt a spot for watering.
Yeah.
If you wanted to.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, I knew Jay very well and we worked together on the music hall. And he had so many interests. And I'm thinking most people aren't going to know Jay. I wonder if there's some way to have some visualizations of things that he was engaged in, whether it's a plaque, will you be designing a plaque, or whether it's,
The plaque has not been designed at the moment, so if you want to say something on the plaque,
well, I was thinking
that
of,
would be good.
you know, something that would catch people's eyes, like, you know, he was a musician, he had a beautiful voice, he sang.
All right,
He was very interested in the arts of all kinds. I mean, as well as he was such a practical guy, I mean, he was out there, he was the Mark McNabb of his day. He was buying up all of State Street and doing the work himself, not that he had to.
Well, if you wanna put some words down, that would be great, because I only knew him tangentially, so I can't speak for him. I have friends that knew him pretty well.
I'm just thinking that
Kathleen.
for all the people who from now on will never have heard of him, you know, walking by, to give
Oh.
it some,
Sorry.
At the back there's a stone with a plaque that just says some basic facts about his life.
Yeah.
Wait, that stone back there? Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
does it say?
So, but I don't think it says what you want to say.
It doesn't show,
So
It's wrong.
this stone, when this head's removed, we could put a plaque on that stone.
yeah.
If you want to say something,
Or carve into the stone some
well,
visualization.
plaque is much, carving into stone is tricky. You have to move the stone, bring it to
Go on, Terrence.
Come on.
Let's go.
I'll just do this. I still know people that enjoy doing that. That's probably a really hard piece of granite. But a plaque,
Just as an idea. to-
no, that's a great idea, and I would encourage you to write something, because not the man well enough, and I just knew him, but.
And I'm
not-
thinking of all his various friends who are contributing to this, obviously, because you mentioned a number of
Well,
people.
if you write something, I
They can
could,
add to it.
I could send it to them, and
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of the facilitator, because I know him and I know his friends, but really just an acquaintance.
Could we put some of that on one of those new signs that we do, like we did for Spiraling Serenity? Or is that too sort of
Like I said,
official and less
push and
artistic?
aesthetically.
It's less of those artistic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
this is more artistic. Yeah,
I would encourage you to write something.
yeah.
And then I can pass it around to people that knew him and see if they want to add or
Yeah.
to the whole thing.
I think you're right, because you walk, I mean, I know who Jay Smith is, so I only knew him in very brief passing, but people walking, you know, a memorial kind of is there to memorialize the person
Yeah.
who's being memorialized, so that, I mean, really, so that people pause and think about them.
Right, exactly.
Well, the information in the public art review inventory is wrong as is, so the next time we do a roundup, we'll correct what's there and then also get ready for the new.
Yeah, so the city's gonna, they're gonna walk this thing through the meeting with the trust and stuff.
Okay.
And it has to go to the city council and the city manager and then the chart. So Peter Rice is involved in that, and I'm kind of out of the loop on that.
Okay.
So you said you're gonna remove the lilacs, which as much as I love native plants, I didn't know.
There's gonna be some I mean, there's plenty of flowers in there, but the lilac blocks the view.
Right,
into
I
the
didn't
space.
even know this was a city park. I thought it was a private park.
Yeah, it's
I
a,
for years thought it belonged to the house next door because they seem to maintain it.
because they seem to maintain it, right?
Right,
I mean,
so-
I think everybody I thought that too.
Yeah, so I didn't even realize, and I actually did a inventory of city parks and it didn't show up a few years ago.
Oh.
So that tells you it's been kind of really off the radar. So removing the lilacs will help bring it back to the
Yeah,
street.
so I could send Chris the plans I developed, so there is a demo plan that
Yeah, we
shows what
have-
plants are being removed and what's.
So yeah, there's another piece. I didn't.
Yeah, so there's a whole landscape set that goes with that, not just the
guess-
stuff about the bust.
My question is really, there are a few trees there as well, behind it, I believe.
There's a Chinese lantern tree
Yes,
right there that stays.
okay,
Crabapple stays. Those arborvitaes are ratty. They get replaced.
Okay.
The big summer sweet stays.
okay.
I mean, I'm just moving. I mean, that's my business. I just, if it looks ratty, it's out.
Well, that's all I had a question about, because as much as we can retain the shade, so that the park is still somewhat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Chinese lantern tree, that's a critical tree that provides most of the shade. So
Yeah,
that remains.
great.
What do you think we should do? Because this is not our typical. I mean, obviously, we have nothing to say about the landscape. It has,
I would endorse the fact that what we were doing and
yeah,
that you are going to take the initiative to write the plaque.
yeah, it's not our normal.
No, it's not normal at all.
It's only equipment, it's only happening.
I mean, it's participatory.
It's already happening, but it does need to go to the council, so we should have some endorsement of it, correct?
I believe Peter Rice told me it has to go through the city manager and the council.
The council has to vote for the trust to release the funds.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Our standard letter.
yeah, really, the fact that we have reviewed it, I mean, we can't say anything right now about the art, because we don't have it yet. Haven't seen it yet, or we
We
don't.
have
know.
a sketch. Carl is gonna build everything based on photographs of Jay. 'Cause
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to contact everybody who knew him and see what photos they had.
That sketch is excellent.
Yeah, Carl did that. Carl also did the sketch with me as the art director of the Ruth Blame Memorial mural. That's Carl H.'s sketch.
Yeah.
And that looks exactly like the woman that we
Yeah.
hired to
And
line.
it looks exactly like
Yeah.
Joe, so I trust
Yeah,
that.
Carl's pretty talented.
So we would just do our normal endorsement. Are there any other questions people have or suggestions?
If it's a bust and not a full, since it's just a bust,
Plus, yeah.
I would recommend it be elevated if it's possible.
Well, that's why there's a stone there, but
Yeah,
we think we need to get another stone to put under that, so it's
Yeah.
not gonna be, it's still gonna be, if this is the ground, it's still only gonna be 2 feet above the ground.
But that's still better, like
It's not like life-size height.
Yeah, right.
That's a.
right.
Just not down.
Yes, because the current one is odd. Because you can't actually, you don't look at the face, you see the head top.
Well, it's probably gonna be about the same height off the ground as that. That's, the one that's there now is oversized, human oversized. So we're trying to get it to be at the same height, but a smaller,
Smaller
Yeah.
head.
so there has to be a stone underneath it.
I'm just thinking about dogs. You don't want dogs coming in and
Well,
On
that's a
that.
good point.
you want it just high enough that you don't have.
Yeah, having owned a dog, it's like dog owners have to do their work.
Yeah. They wouldn't let them.
Okay, I just want to remind you that not only did people let their dogs poop in the park, but humans also did as well. So just saying that as a reminder.
Well, it'll
You
be,
can't, you
no,
can't make things too safe.
those tall lilacs won't be obstructing the view. So that was part of my mission.
So I think we're good.
All right.
Thanks, Terrence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
James. Thank you.
Good luck.
Terrence,
Yeah. I'll leave a little,
coming back next month?
so you're gonna write that, right? No, I like that. That's participatory. That's excellent.
Yes.
All right, bye-bye.
But how, Chris, then, hey, how do we just kind of ask, is there someone who, local in that area, is it to be able to kind of spearhead watering and things like that? Is it like Richardson's Market? Because is this, the house next door is still under construction or whatever it's going to be. So I have no idea what's happening
Yeah.
there.
This would be an adopt a spot. If we could talk to the city about adopt a spot.
But if the city has
city's gonna
committed to
maintain it.
take care of it, they'll take their water truck around.
They will.
Will they?
Well,
That's what I,
well, I mean, if they committed to it,
that's what I heard.
yeah. Well, we can reinforce that.
I
So
think we need to
I think
because
it's a
that's,
good idea, and reinforcing that in the
because
letter.
it gets so grubby in there.
It got really scruffy, yeah.
Yes, I thought it just went, when the house was being redone, that the whole garden, I just thought it was part of the garden. Because
Yeah.
it seemed like that's what was happening.
And I think I and many other people have always wondered about who is depicted on the head. And it sounds like it wasn't really anybody particular.
Right, because Kate Crowley was a member of the Button Factory while I was there, and she died very suddenly and young. And then I saw this bust and it's got her name, but it's not, I know what she looks like, obviously, and that's not a bust of her.
Right.
I don't know if it was done in honor of her, but I guess he said Steve Lee, who I also know, did the bust.
The bust was there while she was still alive. She used to be the one that cared for the park. She used to be the caretaker.
Both was there and then they just added her name.
After she died, they just put a little plaque in just to let people know that she was connected to it. I don't know who did that. I don't know who did that.
Yeah, because when I saw it, I was sort of like taken aback, like, wow, I was, still very, still kind of mourning the loss of her. It was so sudden and she was so young. But I was puzzled because I hadn't seen the head before, I guess, or I hadn't noticed it. And I thought, well, it's got her name, but that doesn't look like her. So now I get it. Okay, thank you.
And Stephanie, if you're still on, even though I won't send you like a whole new inventory, if it's okay, I'll just send you some content, because right now we have Kate as the artist and that it's a J. Smith bust. I don't remember who did the research, but it is not correct, obviously.
Well, it's good to get this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could just if we could also just recommend that once it's complete, that we do a rededication.
Oh, good
Yeah.
point. Good
Because
point.
that way we can get more people exactly what it is. Because I think to Kate's point, nobody knows what it was. And
Yeah.
because the house next door is still, there's no way that's ever going to be done in time.
Right. I like that. And especially because obviously friends of Jay are still kind of connected to it. And that would be nice for them as well. I think that's a great idea. We want to make sure we do that. Okay.
And music.
And music,
Yeah.
right. That was a big deal today. Panel garage RFP. A couple things to mention before we talk about it. One is Sean and I did have a meeting with Peter Rice. We went over a lot of things about public art. And the one thing in the meeting that Peter was enthused about was that we might have murals in the garage.
Inside.
He was particularly enthused about inside. Now, Peter is not on the park committee and doesn't necessarily decide these, but even though I think we all agree that, that's a good idea. The reason he thought it was a really good idea is that they've tried hard to have people have more respect for the garage. And, you know, it's a garage, so it's hard to do that. Well, along the lines of what Nancy's saying, it's hard to do it with a park as well. But he thought that, you know, if we could do something nice there. The one caution is, and, you know, that garage has a life, even though it's just been refurbished, it still has maintenance issues and it still, you know, has leaks. And I mean, it's an old garage. It was built at a time. It's safe. It's totally safe. It's been shored up. But the ideal fantasy would be that that would be replaced at some point. So we, you know, we talked about, but we all know public art's not forever, especially murals are not forever. They can be made to last longer than sometimes they do. So that's also why murals may be a good choice for this. So that's one thing to be aware of. But I'm a little bit wary, though this is up for discussion, for us to simply confine it to murals to the inside. You know, you can see in this draft, I sort of hedged it that we welcome proposals from artists in all media. But our public was interested in murals and our city is interested in murals that would be on the inside. That's not to say, so what I guess I don't want to do is to mislead any artist if we don't think we would entertain other things, to have people put the time in to do something, you know, a light show on the top of it or whatever that we're not even going to consider. I want to make sure we're not wasting people's time. But I also want to make sure we're not being overly prescriptive and locking ourselves out of what might be a really creative idea that we all ended up loving. So that's one thing. And a second thing that Ernie and I talked about, is this a place, is there a way to think about a local preference? Local, and when I say local, I mean Seacoast, New England, a local artist preference. And if we decided that we were going to do that, we need to make it real. We have to have a way to actually give that preference. So those were two things that Ernie and I talked about in advance. And then I'll just open it up for any discussion or any point that people want to make. Yeah.
Where is this going to be distributed? Is it distributed nationally somehow?
Yes, we have a list that we've been evolving that we used for the last couple of commissions, and you know, we keep adding to it. So, and then we encourage people to send it on to others.
I printed.
Do we typically get submissions from people, entities outside of
International.
international? Okay, like Rito.
Yeah, I would say even if you just share it regionally or locally, people still, we found that like with Endeavor, people still pick up on it, you know, like other people share it. And, you know, even if you're not sharing it that widely, you still, things get out there.
And one other sort of basic question. So I had a comment and a question that are sort of related. It says we're commissioning an original work of art, which implies that just one, but we're talking about multiple murals, right? And then would we?
Yes, that should be plural. Or it should say original work.
Okay.
Of art. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And then would there be a situation maybe where we would have some murals and then maybe sculpture outside if that came within the budget, or are we just getting one artist to do?
Well, it's a question.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really up to, we reserve the right to, you know, let's say we fell in love with something that fit in the budget. It's going to be hard because we don't have as much money here as, you know, we might. But that's going to be up to the review committee. We could even select two different artists to do two different murals if we thought that.
Kind of what I was thinking, if we have a mural on each floor or
Could do that.
working towards that, you know, maybe
Yeah.
we
And
can't.
I was thinking also that similarly, you know, we could have a mural or that was, let's say, on the outside that would impact the community more than having something inside. But, you know, would be really cool if there was a sort of way of bringing that, whatever the theme was, into the garage on, so that the interior was articulated in some way that kind of played off some detail concept of the outside mural. I mean, that would be a really good, I mean, I don't know if we can write it up to say outside, you know, a major piece outside with some small way of activating the interior space. Because I mean, I remember you showed us a picture of that garage with the artists on various floors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very cool. I mean, it doesn't have to be artists, but
Right. Yeah, yeah.
I missed last meeting, but when we were talking about it, I thought we were thinking more sort of three-dimensional art outside, like maybe a whale, or remember you showed us that teeter-totter from the top of the building. Is that sort of too big,
That's why
pricey?
I mean, there's such a strong preference in the flash vote for murals. That was the discussion,
okay.
Beth, that we, you know, people clearly are really interested in that. And we were kind of going on the flash vote.
Yep.
And then adding it to DPW's interest in saying that would be a really good idea. That doesn't mean that if somebody proposed something that we all thought was just fantastic.
I'd like to make a pitch for something that I already pitched before when we first talked about the garage a couple of years ago. And I talked about how when I host the groups from Seacoast Leadership on their Arts and Culture Day, I stand in front of the Ruth Blay mural to explain the history of that mural and who she was. But at the beginning of each group, like 6 groups come every day on their Seacoast Leadership scavenger hunt. And I asked them what their favorite piece of public art in the city is. And absolutely every single group has at least one, but typically 2 or 3 people in that group that say the whale wall every time. And I can tell you, when I was on the city council, when the whale wall was still up and in such disrepair, people were extremely angry with the city over allowing that to happen. Yes, I know it was not on a city building, but facts don't really matter when people are so emotionally connected to something. So my proposal, if you remember, I thought that this would be a wonderful way for the city to say, hey, let's do Whale Wall 2.0, that this time we can control the longevity of the work. So I'm just putting that out there as a nod to something that has so much emotional resonance with people who have lived here.
I think one thing we could at least do, I have some reservations about that, which I'll explain, but at least we could talk about that in the RFP, how people remember a mural that was of sea life. I mean, one reservation I have, because this will have to go through the HDC, and you remember how the HDC turned down the project that was going to be a wonderful depiction of whaling that Mark McNabb was going to pay for. So that is one thing we need to kind of keep in mind here, because they were saying that it's not part of our history.
Whaling or
Whaling.
whales?
Whaling.
But whales.
So
Whales.
I think one of the critical things though that's important, it will go through the HDC, but, and this is now that I'm the new HDC member, I'm being very strict about this. Municipal properties only get a advisory
Oh, that's
review.
true. Yeah.
So and it's really critical to remember.
That's really important, Kate.
Yeah.
How do other people
Clarify.
feel about Nancy's suggestion, though? Let's talk about her suggestion.
Well, it wouldn't be by that artist necessarily. We don't know if he's available, right? But it would be could be a whale.
That's why I said 2.0. No, not the same artist.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that idea, Nancy, and it could even tie in what Mara was just talking about, where you do have internal murals that aren't the same, but it could all be that theme. A different whale. I mean, we had a whale in the river 2 years ago.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Nancy, I had forgotten what you had said originally a couple of years ago, but about how people ask for it. But I know that, we get, that's something that one hears over and over again about what is lacking in this city, which is the disappeared whale mural. And so, I like the idea has resonance.
It does have resonance. I used to work in children's television, and we used to say, what you want to do is not ask them what they want to see. You want to get them interested in something they didn't even know they were interested in.
I like that idea.
Yeah, that's what you do as a teacher.
So if people are interested in the whale idea, would you add a line to the letter? Or would you include a picture of the whale wall as something fondly remembered?
My sense of, I hate to be so prescriptive for artists. That's my one sense about that. I would maybe being suggestive, but not being too prescriptive.
One of the things that I think maybe we should consider is this garage is brick in many places. So if they're doing a mural on the exterior,
It can't be on the wall.
it'd have to be something like the Ruth Blay piece that is a cling. Or there is actually on the Hanover side of the garage, if the pictures are still accurate, quite a bit of concrete on one level.
Yep.
That maybe could be considered as a space to paint. Yeah.
But actually, the Ona Judge mural is not on the wall directly. It's it's a kind of cloth that can be it was explained to me, taken down from, if they, for some reason, move, it could be removed from that space even. Yeah.
And that would be great. I just want to make sure that no one is submitting this, that they're painting onto.
Right. And actually, Peter told us that the interior walls don't hold paint, but that's one of their problems. So it would also have to be on some other surface that would be applied.
Is there some way that in the RFP we could summarize what was shared in the flash vote? And, which would include local artists and murals, just to give people a suggestion, because community input is important. In that, it's not the only thing we're considering, but that has been community input.
Yeah, I think we could add more of that. It sort of suggests that, murals come from that community input.
But could we also say, because I think what I'm hearing people talk about is outside and inside. So because we say the inside or outside or a combination of, because that way they might be able to tie that into it.
Yeah.
And the only other thing is when we talked about the Vaughn Mall, we talked about the fact that we don't have the projection, we don't have any of that. We don't have all the, I should say laws, we don't have that yet. So that's what, I don't want to give anybody that, because we'll never get that done in time, that we could never pass all that. So the projection, while cool as it might be, I don't think that's possible for this one. Is it?
Maybe not a projection, but maybe a lighting effect,
Okay.
But you're right. I think that's a good point.
And you can envision the interior light, something being done in the interior with colors or in the lighting.
Or you could even, to the example Mara was giving, if there was an interior mural, there might just be a light outside that's a particular color, or, something that's very suggestive, but does not tamper with the surface. So if people are thinking that we should put in here something about the fondness that there was for the whale wall.
I don't know that we should. Now that I think that we should either be clear or not clear. Or not specify. And if we bring in the fondness that people have for the whale wall, I don't see how somebody reading this proposal would not be directed to think about the whale wall and wanting to do something that speaks to it. Now, if that's what we want, then we should put it in. But I think that psychologically, that would be the effect of putting something like that into a RFP. I mean, anybody reading it would say, oh, they want something that echoes that.
Could we give maybe something more maritime themes? So not just say whale wall, but maritime themes
Does that make
Sea life?
or sea life.
Yeah, because maritime themes, I think of, oh, ships. That's
Yeah.
the thing on a
The
ship.
maritime.
Yeah.
And we do already have, Bohenko Gateway Park is maritime themed.
Right.
So I think that could be limiting.
We also have, I don't know what, Ernie and I talked to Novacure, and Novacure is planning to do, because they have the building that was the whale wall. They are planning to do, in a small area, I'm gonna say it's probably 10 by 8, something like that. Murals that involve kids preparing something, kind of like Richard Haynes does, like he did, engaging young people in, and something that would change on a periodic basis. I don't know what their subject matter is going to be. It's probably not going to be a whale. Probably not what the kids would come up with. But they are going to use that wall for that purpose.
I feel my opinion on this would be that if we are not going to harken back to something, that we should leave it. We should, like what Mara said, if we're not going to do that, let's go completely open-ended. But I do love the idea of summarizing the flash vote and saying, this is what the community is interested in. And that includes local artists, and that includes murals and sculptures to some extent. And so those things would be looked at preferentially, or whatever language we want to use. But I would just leave it at that, and then let the artists interpret that in their own creative way. If we're not going to say, like, I think even sea life is too specific if we're not going to actually say whale wall. So I would say open-ended and let the artists bring their creativity to the process.
Well, that's very consistent with what we did with the RFP for Pierce Island, because we put an appendix on that, if you remember, that summarized what we learned from the public input sessions.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
similar thing. Yeah. Yeah, I think we could do that.
Can we still just link to the results? I don't know if they're still available online. If they're available online, it would be very easy just to link to the results of the
I don't know if they
flashback.
stay available, Kate. That's a good question. But that's a lot for anybody to plow through. I think we could just summarize the highlights,
I think it'd be safer to summarize the highlights
Yeah.
too, because the public art
Yeah.
review the sessions that we did were specifically for Pierce Island. We're not doing ones for
Well, that's a
the
good point.
garage.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe if we had the public having this discussion with us, they'd come to some other place. Yeah. Okay.
I would be happy to take a look at Flash Vote and do my best at summarizing the answers, and maybe I'd run it through Claude AI or something and include that with the meeting minutes, and everybody can take a look and see if that's something that we think would be helpful. I'd be happy to do that.
We already did a summary that, Ernie, do you think the summary that you did, that where you tallied the different themes, that would, because you've already done that essentially.
Oh, okay.
I think more helpful the summary that I think Monty and Karen Conard did. I thought they did a really good job with that. I mean, we want to edit it a little bit. You don't need to get into the funding and that kind of thing. But I mean, Nancy, I could send, if you don't have that, I could send it to you.
If something already exists, then there's no need to, I mean, just include that.
And
Like,
maybe
Want to tweak it a little.
yeah, you'd want to tweak it because you also did a tally of different comments. And I think something like that, if you add something like that in, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I
So
do that if you want me to do that. Share that.
I think we could take another crack at this, and then we need to get from DPW dimensions, things like that. And then I just took placeholder, we need better photos. I just pulled some that, but I'm sure that Peter must have better photos. I just pulled some out of, reports online. So the sense is, we don't want to be too prescriptive, but we do want to focus. And we want to give them some ideas what the public wants.
And we're not saying which particular wall we want them to articulate.
No, but I think if we give dimensions, and if interior dimensions particularly, that'll help an artist to know, because I think, Peter was particularly interested in the stair towers, for example.
Exactly. I was just thinking, you have to give some sense, like, is it horizontal? Is it vertical? Like,
Right, how wide is it?
40 feet or is it 20 feet,
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw something out there that this conversation is making me think of. We could also look at it in a different way and see how many spaces there are in there, like on each floor, and go with however many floors there are for whatever different artists, and do an RFP for 4 different artists, or however many we decide. I'm just throwing that out there because, so what you're going to do $10,000 for each.
It's just that's very little money. When we know that the ONA judge is costing over 40,000.
Yeah, true.
You don't want to make it impossible, When you think of the garage, there's almost no wall space in the garage.
Yeah.
There's the stair towers, and our garage has almost none. I hadn't ever really thought about that, because our elevators are not in a block. They're just skinny little things next to the stair tower. So they don't even have much wall beside them. So there's very little actually space inside the garage to do anything with.
There's public bathrooms in there, right?
Yeah.
They're public
Wall
bathrooms.
That main floor, it's got some walls that enclose. the
Yes.
bathrooms.
This is why I want to leave it a little more open-ended, because I can see a really cool light installation in the garage that would provide an artistic element inside the actual garage. And I just keep thinking it's going to be really hard if we can't paint those surfaces to get the cost where it needs to be to do projects.
I mean, the beautiful thing is that the tieback approach is pretty inexpensive. Nancy, do you know what the Ruth Blake, for example, the fabrication would have cost?
I want to say it was, I feel like it was in the $2,000 ballpark.
Really? Yeah,
But-
that's design or artist work, but
Right, but that's
just
just,
fabrication. So you could do a lot with that.
So my question is, you're talking about multiple pieces, potentially different
Mhm.
things, but when you put the RFP out that says it's worth
60,000.
$60,000, isn't someone gonna make an offer that costs them $60,000? And they're not gonna say, "Oh, I'll just take 15 and I'll leave 45 for others."
Well,
I mean, just the language of the RFP.
yeah, but we could, to get past that, we could say that we're open to funding more than one piece depending on cost. Yeah,
Okay. So someone might have, but then maybe someone does have a piece that's only
Right.
20 and they really think it's a great fit and they pitch it. And then the group has an opportunity to do multiple.
yeah. Yeah, I think we need
Um,
to do something like that.
Some of the more experienced artists know how to put like multiple things in their submission, they can anticipate a committee picking and choosing parts of 2 or 3 different artists. That's how we ended up with different artwork and different artists at the Foundry Garage, because both Terrence and Seth Palmater kind of understood the assignment. And when we came to each of them, Terrence took the second element, or he had 2 other elements completely out, and Seth downsized his. And so it kind of, so an experienced person can make a proposal that is flexible, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I have one more question. If we're gonna use the flash vote information to guide the RFP, and the flash vote was primarily from locals, if
Yes.
they're saying murals, they're probably meaning ones that they can see. I'm not sure how many locals park in the garage. Is that anything we should be thinking about?
It's a good point.
I was thinking about that too. I thought, okay, so you have to actually be in the garage to
With
see
the
the
garage.
mural. Never park in the garage.
Yeah.
I
I was just thinking that as we we're all talking.
I park in the Masonic lot and then for nothing and then walk downtown. So
It's an interesting point, Beth.
I don't know. Yeah, it's true. Pete will get mad.
Stephanie just put something in the chat. I don't know if you can see it.
Right. I will say something along the line.
Oh, yeah, that's what Ernie was referring to. The summary that Monty,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Visible downtown placements. So that's not inside.
forward storytelling.
Don't tell Pete I'm the one that brought that up.
It's really good.
Locals do use the garage for parking in the winter.
Yes.
It is a winter time and, snow emergency kind of
That's
parking.
true.
So they do use it in the winter time, but as to your point, a lot of more, we call them visitors? Visitors would see them.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah. I mean, if you love the whale wall and as happy a thing as it and commercial as it was, then if we do somebody really think of it, well, if we, think of how that looked after the first year. I mean, it started to deteriorate almost immediately. And it was commercial and there were, we do remember original pieces of art and you could see that all up and down the East Coast. Cause he did one in every city.
Yeah.
And that, we have to remember original here. If people love that though, and we do something nice in the garage, they'll bring their friends to see it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well,
That's
and
right.
people walk down by like Pat Sierra's and just see the murals down there. I mean,
Yeah.
those are some of my favorite murals. They're hiding, you have to go
Yeah.
find them. So people do go see them.
I wonder if there's also potentially visibility from the outside on some of these places. Think about that. Like in the stair towers, there might be visibility.
There was light.
Light.
If there were any light.
Light
Visual
sounds
light
good.
feature, you can definitely.
Yeah, because that would certainly draw you in to go, what is that?
Exactly.
It would be.
Anything else? I think this is enough to do another cut at this and
Good.
add some of the pieces. Oh, local. What are your thoughts about how we legitimately could do something that acknowledges local? Remember, we don't have that many. We have a few murals. We can't get too local because we want to give.
But I think if you're saying that in the flash vote, if you put that in as a note, then at least it's been stated.
Mhm.
So I think that might take care of it. Excuse me.
I think that it's more important for the committee to decide when we're choosing if we're gonna give them.
Ernie and
I have a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
If there were two equally that we were trying to decide between, and one was more local than the other, that might make a difference. Nancy?
Would there ever be, would we consider, if we are able to keep the identities of the artists anonymous or confidential, could we present the park's finalists to the city for residents to weigh in on if we kept something at the library or put it out in social media and see which pieces rise to the top from the community? And they might be surprised who they select, I don't know.
Sets a precedent.
Yeah, I think a little scary.
Yeah. It's a little scary.
But at least for Spiraling Serenity, we could point back and said, we did hold sessions and you gave
Right.
your
We did
input.
do,
It just reminds me of, what was that guy's, Bodie McBoatface, that they did that? They asked the public to vote on names, and somebody said Bodie McBoatface, and that's what got one.
I think it was in England.
It was in England, I
Yeah.
think.
So certainly in the flash vote, we can indicate that. Good. All right, I think we should take another crack at this before we have DPW take. See what they're gonna have.
They've seen it.
But I mean, we need to
Yeah.
get more of this thinking into it. Okay.
Just to comment, to follow up on Nancy's comment about having the public have a vote on it. That certainly has a lot of merit, but sometimes people's taste, like they might love something that they never knew existed. Like if they discovered a new piece of art, like you go into a museum and you think, well, I know what I like. And then you stumble into a room that has, I don't know, something wild or abstract or
Right.
has sound to it or flow to it, something that you never envisioned. And you just it changes your whole perspective and you suddenly are drawn into it. Well, I mean, but you didn't know that art even existed before.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if people voted for, what the only thing that they were
We're
familiar with.
with. Yeah.
Well, remember, I did say we would select finalists, and I'm sure if we have finalists, we would all be okay with any of the finalists. I did say that.
Yeah, well, I said your idea certainly has good merit and it's not criticizing your idea. I'm just want to put the seed out there that the public might fall in love with something that they had never encountered before, given the opportunity.
Well, what do you think about doing that with the council, Kate? Taking Nancy's idea and having it be not just anybody, but, a smaller group that is going to make a decision anyway to approve it.
I don't know.
That's not enthusiastic.
Yes, it's not an immediate yes. Right.
Let me think about that. Because I don't know that they want, frankly, I don't know that they want to
To
do
do
that.
that. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
significant amount of time invested and
Yeah.
Valid point, Sean, that's our job.
That's our job. All right.
But I guess that's why I think although the idea has, is interesting and has merit and it might satisfy the people who say, I wasn't consulted, that is our job.
That's our
And
job.
it seems like a tease to say, tell us what you like and
And then we pick something else.
pick something else. It's like, oh.
That's true.
We
And-
told you.
Do we have to decide that now, or can we wait? And if we had 3 really spectacular concepts that we really felt comfortable about all 3 and can we wait and make that decision after we see what kind of a pool we get?
Yes, and we do have language in here that allows us to do that if we need to, if we for some reason needed to.
And let me suggest instead of, if you decided to have public input on finalists in any way, you could do that in one of your committee meetings and have the finalists presented and have people come and make public comment and just,
You could do
and
that.
see who comes to make public. I mean, you might get some, you might not get a lot.
Sure, you could enlarge that comment. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Very interesting. Good. Okay, last thing there is just to let you know that one of the things I learned in the discussion with Peter and Sean is that the space where the Ferry House sculpture was going to go is no longer available because the Baron von, what's his name?
Oh.
German Baron who.
Oh, that's the plaque
Yeah.
for the 250th.
For 250th, the German Baron who came during the Revolutionary War and I believe trained Revolutionary troops.
I believe something to that effect.
That plaque is going to go there instead.
Oops. They took our spot.
Because you guys already voted on that, I believe.
We did, but it didn't have a specific location when we voted on
But
it.
apparently that's where he landed, is what Peter said.
Okay, we just approved having it in Prescott Park.
Okay. But, I was thinking about this and remember, that was not the original location that Corin had thought was good and they had thought was good. So I think we could go back to the drawing board and see if we could make a pitch for that, if the Friends of South End are still interested in that spot.
So I'm on the board of Friends of South End, so make sure I disclose that so everybody knows, and I won't take part in discussion or decisions on this, but I think an important piece of information that everyone should be aware of here is that the Friends of the South End has decided to end the Ferry House tours, so they're not having it anymore.
Right.
So this piece of sculpture is pretty important to memorialize the over 20 years of the Ferry House tours.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they would entertain different options, frankly.
So
I have a question. What is the timeline for the extension of the park where the La Cava building stands right across the bridge from Prescott Park? What's the timeline for that? And is that a potential location?
The timeline, there is no timeline. It was removed from the CIP budget temporarily because of cost. So it's not, because it's too far in an out year at this stage.
Well,
So-
that answers that.
Yeah, at the moment, the Mechanic Street Pumping Station is in the CIP budget for next year to be funded. And it is likely to move a little bit to be on higher ground, which will impact anything that we're thinking about in that area.
Okay, that's helpful. So we need to pick this back up. Is that something that maybe you and the board
can
could talk
coordinate.
about and that we could, because then a secondary, I do think, their first choice is Prescott Park. I think a secondary option is the South Meeting House.
I think that's challenging because the lease involves all the property around the South Meeting House. And we agreed to lease it to,
Oh, well, Russ is very enthusiastic about this.
so that is a possibility.
Assuming that they remain enthusiastic, then that's a possibility.
That's a possibility. I do have questions about how the von Steuben plaque ended up in the same location that was identified. That we've already accepted the location for.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
So, because we were not given the location at City Council. So
So that's something you can pursue.
I will ask that question first, because maybe the Baron von Steuben plaque could go somewhere else. Because it seems like an odd place to me for that plaque, because you won't see it. We won't, a plaque usually goes along a sidewalk. That's really visible. So I do have kind of questions.
It may have to do something with something he did there.
Yes. So,
I second what Kate said, because I was thinking the same thing. We'd already had the very sculpture of food, right? In the park, so how is it being displaced?
And I don't even know where it is right now. So that's something that you can also find out.
Okay.
So, reminder, we'll let you know if we think the next meeting is going to be along the, what we think we're gonna get for applications. And Christine Freeze will join us if we are actually reviewing applications.
To turn off and reinforces.
Anything else?
Oh, look, there's information about Von
Steuben
Steuben.
Lanner from France.
Oh, there he is. He wrote the manual to turn Washington's militia into trained forces
And he landed from France in
in
Portsmouth,
Portsmouth.
Okay.
1777.
We appreciate him, but that plaque could.
It's an important plaque and it's nice
Yes,
that we
yeah.
accept it. But I'm not sure why it needs to go in that location.
So you're saying you city council approved the exact location of the Ferry House tour?
We accepted
Yes.
we accepted the memo that came to us that listed the location.
Yeah.
Of where it was going to go in the park, I thought.
The specific location?
We had, I'm not sure either, because I think we had identified a couple of places. And then the city manager decided it should go somewhere else. So I think our memo was a suggestion, and then
Prescott Park, usually
it was
it's,
broad.
right.
We can go back and look at that.
I
That's
think we should
good.
go back and look at it, because that's what I had thought we had,
Yeah.
I know we'd already accepted it before we accepted the variance on student.
Like I'm
plaque, so.
working with another group on another marker. We've accepted it at the Plains,
Yeah.
but DPW decides exactly where, or we decide exactly where.
Okay.
Because I couldn't give them an exact,
No, an exact location, because you don't know what the ground,
right. Plus there was
Situation is-
under 3 feet of snow.
is there granite, is there,
Yeah, so we should go back and look both at what we said and then what
I
the
think
council
that's- I think
accepted.
that-
Yeah.
Yeah, but, okay.
And the way I heard it, I mean, we didn't hear from the Friends of the South End, just the line kind of went dead.
really?
Yes.
Oh, I think that they were probably expecting to hear. I think it was probably the other way around.
So we gotta,
Yeah, I can easily remedy that.
Okay.
and we gotta
Send
move
it
on.
back.
So
Yeah.
you're safe from me.
I can send
The-
a text at the moment and find out.
Okay. So we'll let you know if it's gonna be a longer meeting, and expect to get another draft RFP to take a look at. So I mean, the dates in here are placeholders. We don't have to, it won't go out until we're ready to have
Yeah.
it go out. We'll just adjust all the times. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
We have public
Oh,
comment?
do we have public comment?
Well, I came for kind of a show and tell, if I may. I think outside the box, and I was intrigued enough last time. My
Who is speaking, please?
Yes, tell your name and.
Randy Watson.
Thank you.
My grandfather said good art should be a visual symphony. I think you should be able to touch it too. You know, there's something about that. But my thought was, this was just a rock. And I polished it. You didn't see any of this color in it until I started polishing it. I would love to have a great big rock somewhere that is done as rocks are like people. You'll never find two the same. And I attribute this to the raw part of this, if that's untouched, is like our carnal man. The polished part is reflecting the glory of God and what He is doing in us. There's a plan, a purpose, and a process. And we get all excited about the plan and the purpose, but the process sucks. And it's like a 9-step process, and you don't see very big differences between each of the steps, but the difference from start to finish is quite dramatic. And obviously you have to do it in I wouldn't want to do it where somebody could climb on it because it would be slippery if it was wet. I don't want anybody getting hurt on it, but I just think that somewhere a huge rock or, you know, that is partially polished, you see the inside, and so I'm just suggesting this. It may go nowhere, but I was intrigued enough last time I was here to, I met with Sean and he encouraged me to come and talk with you guys about it and see if it sparks any interest for future conversation or, anyways, those are my thoughts.
So the one on, yeah, that,
This is just out of marble that I had made and you can shape it, you can do whatever with it.
those are different pieces of marble.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
Yes, and there's
Same,
8 different
yeah.
levels on this and you know, the nice thing about marble or stone, there's more underneath.
Interesting idea, and thinking that it could be a rock that exists somewhere. That
Yes.
could be done in place. Is that what you're
Yes.
thinking, Wendy?
Yes, I found one down in Florida and in doing this to it, I discovered a fossil in it. And I go, this rock has a story.
Mhm.
As you know, each of us do, you know, if we can relate to that rock, you know, the personality, and some people like different one. I've done a number of these and some people like some better than others.
But
But
something, for example, that might be a rock that's on Pierce Island,
yes,
but that could be, yeah,
I would-
it could be polished in a particular way.
I would love to go up on the side of Mount Major, just up on the side of a trail, carry a generator up there and just polish around. That'd get here, but yes, that's what I'm thinking, just something that is, and it intrigues people and they look at it and they want to touch it and feel free to look at this, touch it,
Mhm.
whatever, because there's just something about it that it's intriguing.
That's the kind of thing DPW would like, I could tell you that. Something that is already,
A rock polishing
well,
program?
that's part of the landscape already.
Yes.
That
Oh.
you have to add to it.
I like the way you think, and that's what I do, and you know, and I've got one in my wife's flower garden. It's as big as I want to lift, you know,
Yeah,
it's
that's
just big
cool.
around, and I've done a bunch of small ones and stuff too, but yes, to sit out somewhere that people look at and they're drawn to it.
Right.
They want to go look at it, and there's things
Yeah.
that they will keep coming back to it.
Right, yeah, no, I think that's a great idea.
I actually have a conversation with them over at the Common Man, which the outside is a veneer of all rocks, to polish some of them. And you know, just so it catches your eye and your interest and stuff, so. But anyways,
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Great
Yeah.
idea.
I'm gonna touch it.
Yeah, it is, it's a beautiful rock. Yes, Kate.
I have a fairy house sculpture update. So, Fosse, it's in Fosse's possession. They have it. They already had discussions with Foreign about installation in the fall, and their installer just had a health issue and couldn't install it in the fall, so it was supposed to be installed this spring.
Okay, that's helpful.
In
Where
that
where
spot.
it had been decided.
Yeah,
So we need to work on this then. Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
second.
And Nancy and
I
Artie,
didn't,
will we see you next meeting? Will you be back?
yes, I return in 2 weeks. I did not catch who made the motion.
Heather made the motion and Lenny seconded the motion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, Nancy.
Great, we'll see you both. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Back to.
Oh, those are, if anybody wants them.
They're really
I'll take them. Yeah.
I can have them.
There, City. Thanks for the quick action, Kate.
Knew that I knew